finishes and factions catching action.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Finishers and Factions Does NXT. This week we came from the Performance Center in Orlando, Florida, like we have done for the last few weeks, as our last NXT before Stand and Deliver, coming this Saturday from Las Vegas as part of WrestleMania week. This episode, as much as I love with NXT every week, does us a solid and jumps straight into the first match, which is a fatal four-way number one contenders match for Ricky Stark's North American title at Stand and Deliver. And this was between Ethan Page, Wes Lee, Lexis King, and Eddie Thorpe, with Ricky Saints sitting at commentary for the start of this match. Now, this one started off with Lexis King in the middle, being surrounded by the other three guys in this match, basically just being teed off on. And Eddie Thorpe eventually takes the start off with a roll-up 2 count on Lexis King after a clothesline. Now, at some point in the beginning of this encounter, I was informed by Adam when we were talking about this off podcast that Lexis King actually managed to grab hold of Wes Lee's twig and berries at some point at the start of this match. So watch out, Lexis King. You could be on the same charges as Vince McMahon very soon. But we do start getting into the nitty gritty of this one. We've got some quite incredible different bits that I've made notes of here. We've got Wes Lee putting a double stomp into the spine of Eddie Thorpe. At one point, Lexis King sets Ethan Page, Wes Lee, and Eddie Thorpe up against the one in the corner of all in the same corner. And as he runs at them to do like a chest bump style move, one moves to the left, one moves to the right, one goes straight up over the top of him. He misses all three of them and runs straight into the turnbuckle. At which point, Ethan Page manages to try and pull a cover on Wes Lee for a 2 count. Now, here's where things got a little bit interesting. So at one point, Ethan Page and Eddie Thorpe had set Lexis King up for a superplex. So you've got Lexis King set up on the top turnbuckle. You've got Eddie Thorpe and Ethan Page on the second rope, and then Wes Lee comes in underneath, sets them both up, and sends all three of them flying for an incredible superplex, which looked like it took more damage or the damage was split 4 ways in that one, because all of them hit the deck and were very much like, holy crap, that hurt. Wes Lee got it all up and running again with a shooting star press on Ethan Page, and then a cover, which Eddie Thorpe broke up for a 2 count. We then get into a little section where Wes Lee dives through the second rope and takes out Lexis King, and Eddie Thorpe pushes Ethan Page into Ricky Starks on the outside. Now, Ricky Starks at this point is pissed, and Ethan Page has got this big grin on his face, like, this guy's an absolute wanker, I hate him. But because you get that much hatred for the guy, you can tell he's doing his role as a heel very, very well. And up until Ricky Saints took the North American title off Sean Spears last week, it was very much Ethan Page was the fastest ever debut to title holder in NXT, and Ricky Saints took that off him, and Ethan Page has got something here. He wants to go off and do something about that. Now, after Ricky Saints starts getting a little bit mouthy and a little bit pushy and shovey, the referee in this match decided it was time for Ricky Saints to go and cool off, and removed him from the equation and told him, look, mate, into the back you go. And Ethan Page set this up a right treat. He knew exactly what he was doing to get Ricky Saints to pop and bang, and in the process of doing so, get him sent to the back. So just after that, we end up with Eddie Thorpe reversing Lexis King and dropping a pretty hefty backdrop on the guy, while you've got Wesley going off against Lexis King in a corner and eventually takes him down for a 2 count cover. I've written down here, this was quite an interesting spot. So Wesley's got a triangle hold locked in on Lexis King, and Ethan Page comes in and puts in a wrist lock. And then Eddie Thorpe come and locks in another move on Ethan Page. So all three of them are trying to submit each other. Yes, you've got Wesley has got hold in on Lexis King. Ethan Page locks in on Wesley, so they're basically they're chokeholds from behind, like we've seen Gunther sneak up and do to Jey Uso a few times. And then, so you've got Lexis King on the floor, you've got Ethan Page wrapped around, Lexis King on the floor, Wesley wrapped around his neck, Ethan Page wrapped around Wesley's neck, and then Eddie Thorpe locked in on Ethan Page. Basically, Lexis King breaks this all down like a sit-down stunner, to be fair. He kind of manages to get himself up and then just seat drops, and the rest of them all peel away. But I mean, we're getting to the real thick of it here. We've at this point had a great match with some incredible spots, and just looking to see kind of, how much better it can get here, and it does. Ethan Page and Lexis King reverse each other in a series of chain moves, with Ethan Page locking in a Boston Crab on Lexis King, and Eddie Thorpe coming in to lock in a crossface, and then Wesley gets in an armbar as well. So poor Lexis King, man, he's been taking an absolute beating, and I'm hoping this isn't all just because he grabbed hold of Wesley's twig and berries. But we end up having Wesley hits a whisper in the wind on Ethan Page, while he had Eddie Thorpe locked in a headlock and Lexis King on his shoulders. So again, Lexis King taking a massive bump, doing a lot of work here, and working his way to a position where he's, I feel, probably one of the strongest in here. That's why everyone's picking on him. But we get a double cover on Ethan Page and Eddie Thorpe at one point. So Ethan Page is covering Eddie Thorpe and Wesley's covering Lexis King, at which point both kick out at 2. You end up with Wesley and Ethan Page exchanging shots in the middle of the ring, while Lexis King hits a swanton on them both. Right, Lexis King hits the swanton on Ethan Page, and Eddie Thorpe drops an elbow on Lexis King, while Wesley hits the Meteor Aura. Eventually, a few moments later, Ethan Page hit Twisted Grin on Lexis King for the 3 count, which means that Ethan Page is off to Stand and Deliver to face Ricky Saints for his North American title, which is going to be a match. That's definitely going to be an interesting match. The Saint versus All Ego Ethan Page. Now, I'm very much going to be looking forward to that one. It's definitely... I'm not 100% sure I'm going to say it's going to be one of the matches of Stand and Deliver, but it's definitely going to be one hell of a match on that card. This next section, we hear a little bit from Jordynne Grace and about her history in wrestling and how she basically got into wrestling to show everyone that she was something after feeling that she was a no one. And kind of given us a brief impact of what she's done where and the accomplishments she had over at TNA, which I'm not going to list off for you because there is an incredible amount of accomplishments here. And basically talking about, letting us know that she's prepared for her part in the Fatal 4-Way match at Stand and Deliver for the NXT Women's Championship. So obviously that's going to end up being Stephanie Vaquer, Jordynne Grace, Julia, and Jada Parker. We move on from there into an Evolve VT, just kind of giving us an update on what's going on there and what Evolve is. And then we move into a Hall of Fame VT. So Adam is doing his own special WrestleMania Hall of Fame episode. I have listened to it. It is fantastic. Um, we're not as normal. He's not doing a recap of the Hall of Fame. He's just giving you a general overview of who's going into the Hall of Fame and why they're going in. You can catch that one live when it goes live on Hall of Fame Day. That will be Finishers and Factions does the Hall of Fame. We then move from there into a backstage segment where we see Solid Ruka and Zarya. Also in the background, we see Kalani Jordan and Ariana Grace and two others that I'm not 100% sure who they are. But Sol Ruka and Zarya are talking about the last two spots in the ladder match for the women's North American title, which we will then find out will come into play a little bit later. As so far, you have Zarya, Sol Ruka, and Kalani Jordan all in that match, and they're all basically saying, Izzy Dame as well, sorry. All basically saying they're going to win it, and it's basically finished with Izzy Dame saying that the championship's coming to the culling, which is obviously Sean Spears and his little family. But we will find out who is going to be another member of this match for the Women's North American Championship at Stand and Deliver, because we have a qualifying match popping up next. This one is Tatum Paxley versus Lola Vice, with Gigi Dolin accompanying Tatum to the ring. Now, I'm going to admit to you, with as much transparency as possible, but as far as I'm aware, this is the first time that I've seen either of these two women wrestle, purely for the fact that I think if they've been on the televised episodes, it might have been the weeks where I was ill and was not watching any wrestling at all. But they're definitely not names that I remember seeing too much of in the ring while we've been doing Finishers and Factions. So this was a nice little opportunity for me to be able to increase my knowledge and see some other superstars that were are on the NXT roster that we don't necessarily get to see as often as possible. Now, this one was quite an interesting one. It started off with my first note being that Lola Vice locks in a crossface on Tatum Paxley, and that Tatum Paxley ends up dropping Lola Vice down in a bridging armbar while Lola Vice gets a reversal of a triangle chokehold locked in, and then ends up with a roll-up 2 count. I've also this one was quite a cheeky little one. I've not seen this for a little while, but Tatum Paxton hides under the ring at one point, and as Lola Vice is trying to pull her out, Tatum pulls her into the frame of the ring, and Lola Vice bounces off that ring side quite harshly, and it looked like there could possibly have been a slight shoulder injury in there, but it was not to be. She did manage to finish this match, and by doing so, having some nice highlights of her own. One of those being a 3 Amigos that she pulled off. Nice little tribute to the late, great Eddie Guerrero in that one. We are seeing that one a little bit more commonly. We see Dirty Dom Mysterio do it quite a lot over on SmackDown, and we have seen some other superstars like Liv Morgan do it as well. So, but it's always nice to see wrestlers paying homage to their favorite wrestlers as they were growing up as well. This match went on for not particularly long. We're already sort of halfway through my notes for this one. I've got up here that Lola Vice sets up a triangle and Tatum Paxton power bombs Lola Vice out of it, and then Tatum takes Lola down shortly afterwards with a swinging neck breaker, but no cover came up this time round. So, she was quite lucky that time. You got Tatum Paxley doing a running crossbody into the corner of the ring against Lola Vice. And after the second or third one, Lola Vice gets her knees up and kind of stops what Tatum's doing and starts kind of firing off with her, and then returns a running hip attack to get a 2 count from that one. It basically finishes with this one where there wasn't an out and out sort of, you couldn't tell who was going to win this match from start to finish. It was very, very even, very, very good match, and it finished with Tatum Paxton using the ropes to jump into the ring from the apron, kind of like a phenomenal forearm style thing that AJ Styles does. Jumps on the apron onto the top rope and then launches himself off using the top rope. Where Lola Vice caught her with a kick and then hit a back fist, which absolutely dropped Tatum Paxley. At which point Lola Vice managed to get the 1, 2, 3, which set her up to meet in the ladder match against Zarya, Solruka, Kalani Jordan, and Izzy Dane, with one more spot left in that match that we will find out about a little bit later on. For our next little section, we had a VT from Julia saying that she explained that she'd been waiting for a rematch and it didn't come, and friendships only go as far as that NXT title. And last week, when she made her appearance for the first time since she lost her NXT title to Stephanie Vaquer, she came out and reminded Stephanie what the beautiful madness is. And well, Jada Parker, she doesn't know her, but she says she's confident. She can't dish it out, but she can take it. And Jordan Grace is strong, and she'll introduce her to her strong style. So we're going to get a slight introduction to Japanese wrestling from Julia here. And both Jordan Grace and Jada Parker are basically just obstacles in her way to Stephanie Vaquer. And after losing her title, she's more dangerous than ever, and she'll be leaving Stand and Deliver as champion. Which, I mean, they're pretty big words. We do know that Julia has the ability to take that title and do a lot with it. She's a very, very talented wrestler, and someone we've seen a lot on the Finishers and Factions podcast since we started at the beginning of the Netflix debut era. From this, we went backstage to see Trick Williams arriving in his SUV. He will be around a little bit later as we see him for a promo at the end of the night. But it's always nice to see Trick Williams decide that he's coming. We then got an NXT shop advert, and I'm not going to lie, there is some stonking merchandise in this store at the moment. Some of these Obafemi t-shirts are incredible. And then it moves on to WrestleMania week's shop, all the WrestleMania merchandise that is available to pick up at WWE World, which was been going on all this week and in Las Vegas for WrestleMania. Now, we now move into another backstage segment, this time with Ava. And Ava saying that there's going to be a triple threat tag match for a chance at the women's titles at NXT after Stand and Deliver. Now, there were a group of tag teams around Ava at the time. Some of them, their faces I did not recognize, and I have not had the time to jump in and research exactly who it is. So, not really being able to help you with that one. But it looks like in the kickoff show, it has been announced that there is going to be a fatal four-way elimination match for the Tag Team Championships, and you're going to have Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade with the Meta Girls, Lash Legend, Chikara Jackson, Fatal Influence, which is Fallon Henley and JC Jane against Gigi Dolin and Tatum Paxley, which is a bit of an interesting one because Roxanne Perez was told that she needed to find herself a tag team partner, and she basically comes back in a little bit later on saying that, I'll do it on my own, at which Ava says, nah, you're not allowed to do that. And Cora Jade pops in and goes, well, are you desperate enough to make an apology? At which it seems that both Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade have put their history behind them, surely just for NXT Stand and Deliver. So I am recording this a couple of days after NXT's programming, purely due to work commitments, family commitments, and it being Easter with the children off. So I am trying to do what I can here. Right, so we then go into our next match, which we are told is a tag title gauntlet match. And we see Hank and Tank come to the ring to face Tyson DuPont and Tyreek Igwe in their first match. And DuPont and Igwe are accompanied to the ring by Wes Lee. Now, we are informed at the start of this match that Hank and Tank are on a 7-loss streak, and we have covered all of those on Finishers and Factions, and they've lost to some pretty good teams, but they've also performed very, very well against them. So this, I don't have a lot of notes for this one, because quite frankly, the first few matches, there was not a lot going on that was really kind of worth mentioning. I do have that Tank took a clothesline to the back of the neck and got covered for an instant kick out at 1. Hank managed to drop a double team. Hank and Tank managed to drop double teams on Tyson DuPont and Tyreek Igwe, give them the 3 count to continue in to the next match. So that sent Tyson DuPont and Tyreek Igwe to the back. They were only out for about 5 minutes tops. It wasn't a long first match, which then brings in Brooks Jensen and Nico Vance from the Culling, who we've already spoken about this evening with their one of their members, Izzy Dame, being in that ladder match at Stand and Deliver for the North American Championship. They want to try and bring the tag team titles back to the Culling too, so that would give them a pretty hefty advantage in the locker room. This, we are told, is the 3rd gauntlet match in NXT history. And as we are told this, Hank and Tank are running bombs into the corners against the Culling and double teaming, end up getting a double team at the end and a 2 count off it. So we then see Tank lock in a crossface on Brooke Jensen, and then kind of ends up a little bit later on, so just bashing him off the turnbuckle and then tagging Hank in, and Hank comes in and gets himself a 2 count. The Culling end up performing a double team on Hank after bashing his head off the announce table, and Vance pretty much destroys Hank, and Jensen gets a 2 count after the tag on him himself. We then end up with Brooks Jensen getting a 2 count on Hank, and Hank dropping Brooks Jensen with one hell of a clothesline. And Nico Vance ended up getting the 2 count on Hank after Brooks Jensen double teamed him behind the ref's back. A little bit of a dirty play out there, and it still ends up going well for them. So Jensen gets a roll up on Tank for a 2, and then catches a spinning heel kick. Once recovered from that heel kick, and a little while later, the Culling perform a double team on Tank, and Tank counters that double team and ends up getting the 3 count on them to send Brooks Jensen and Nico Vance back with their tails between their legs. And as they are walking out, we get to see the next team come out, which was No Quarter Catch Crew. This was Tavion Heights and Miles Bourne. As with every Gauntlet match that we've seen recently, in the third match, it is a point where everyone is getting a little bit more tired, especially, Hank and Tank, who have already had 2 matches, and then to come in and get Tavion Heights and Miles Bourne in their next one is a little bit of a kick in the proverbial gonads. And I'm not going to lie, Tavion Heights got this. He was down for business, and he went straight in to get a roll-up 2 count, while Miles Bourne got a 2 count off a missile drop kick, which was absolutely ruthless, to say the least. We then get Tank and Hank get Tavion Heights got a 2 count and managed to lock in a chokehold. But Hank sends Tavion over the ropes and starts laying into Miles Bourne, pulling off a rather nice bulldog on Miles Bourne as well, to be fair. And while he's still, humped up and hyped up after that, we get the Hank Express on Tavion Heights after doing a lap of the outside of the ring, and he absolutely destroys him. So while Hank and Tank are in the double team, Miles Bourne comes flying over the top rope and takes them out on the outside. And Miles Bourne rolls one of them back in to try and get himself a 2 count. It doesn't quite work. And Tavion ends up doing a backdrop on Hank on the apron to roll him in for a 2 count as well. And then there was another 2 count for Tavion Heights off a clothesline a little bit later on after that. We do end up with Miles Bourne pulling a snap suplex off for a 2 count, and Hank gets the 2 count from a cradle roll-up shortly afterwards. And then we ended up Hank hitting a suplex on Tavion Heights, and then Tavion Heights getting up and hitting one on to Hank himself. So after that, you have Tavion Heights with a 2 count, and Hank interrupts the count, gets tossed out of the ring as No Quarter Catch Crew are trying to set up a double team. Tank rolls one of them up for another 3 count, basically just saying, we're not here to say we're going to win this, but we're here to have a damn good effort. And their final opponents in this Gauntlet match are Josh Briggs and Yoshiki Inamura. This wasn't a huge end to it. Briggs and Inamura came in just trying to finish them off. They had slams, big boots, choke slams onto knees. But in the end, it was Hank rolling up Josh Briggs to win the Gauntlet match and go from a 7-match losing streak to a 4-match winning streak, to then end up finding out that they will be going to meet the team of Nathan Fraser and Axiom for the NXT Tag Team Championships at Stand and Deliver. I personally see this one being a retention by Fraxium, but never rule out Hank and Tank, as they have just shown us in this Gauntlet match. And what Gauntlet match it was, Jesus Christ, man. Wasn't high flying, but it had me on the edge of my seat for a considerably long time. And yeah, I was definitely all over this one when it started, and I didn't even realise it was coming. It just boom, pop. There we go. I was like, God damn! But yeah, no, definitely really enjoyed this one. Our next segment is actually a little bit different than what we get. We have Callie Armstrong talking to Sophie Turner, who is the Evolve GM, about being in the main event of Evolve this week with Kendall Gray, Brinley Reese, and Chantel Monroe. and of which, Callie Armstrong says thank you, and Ava says afterwards that Callie's going to be a big star. And talking about the surprise entrant that Ava has lined up for the match with the last slot in it for this ladder match that we keep talking about at Stand and Deliver. And I wonder who that could definitely be. One thing we do know is that we see Ovo Femi arriving in his SUV, and we are asked the question by commentary about if that is Dark State that is sat behind him. We next have an NXT spotlight on Jada Parker saying how she learned, where to fit, how she learned to fit in, and it all started at Port St. Lucie in Florida, where she made her name in those streets, and that Jordan Grace and Stephanie Vaquer are from other places, and she's the only homegrown talent in this match, and that's pressure, and she's the pressure. She says that the NXT division's the best in the world, and her best friend, when she lost her uncle, she learned that she couldn't trust anyone anymore, and even though people are saying she's got a bit of an attitude, she says life made her hard, and she needs that championship shit to show that she can't be broken, that she's not going to be playing around. Which leads us into what I can only describe for me was one of the more interesting segments of the program. Now, like a few of you who know me personally, when I was younger, was definitely not one to shy away from a good old scrap in a car park. But this specific scrap in the car park was one that we've been waiting for quite a while. And this was between the members of the D'Angelo family, with Tony D'Angelo not being there. And Stax has basically made a choice that Tony doesn't know about, and they're going to have a good old-fashioned sort out in a car park with Dark State. And the D'Angelo family have bought weapons too. A lot of them are carrying crowbars. Ends up starting off in the car park. It goes inside backstage, and the D'Angelo family are pretty much on top most of the time. There's bins being thrown around. There's all sorts of chaos going on. This was not sanctioned. This is just we'll meet in a car park and see what happens. One of the members of Dark State puts one of the members of the D'Angelo through a table out in the background, where they've got snacks and stuff, and then the family then decide to put him through a table, and then one of the Dark State guys gets stuck in the wall with a crowbar, and the two members of the D'Angelo family just spear him through the wall. To which point they end up in a storage warehouse, and they're still causing havoc. A member of Dark State just sprays everyone down with a fire extinguisher, and then they end up going back outside. I've even put in here, this is just pure chaos, and I can't tell who is who and what's going on at this moment. I do know that Luca Crucifino gets brutally slammed onto the bonnet of a car, and you see a white car come flying into the car park, and out of it jumps Tony D'Angelo with a crowbar, and you've got police lights surrounding the background, and Stax is kind of like, look, we need to get the fuck out of it, Tony, there's police. And he's like, nah, they're with me. They were just here to scare everyone off. He said, but I had a plan, and the plan was we were going to meet at Stand and Deliver, and we were going to do it properly. Instead, you two, you bunch of muppets, decided that you couldn't wait for that. So at Stand and Deliver, in WrestleMania week, we're going to have Tony D'Angelo, Channing Stax, Lorenzo, and Luca Crucifino against three members of Dark State. So that will either be Saquon Sugars, Dion Lennox, Cutler James, or Osiris Griffin. They have not been confirmed as to which ones are going to be taking part yet, but this was a banger in the car park. So as we've seen from Jordan Grace, we've seen from Julia, and we've seen from Jaden Parker. Now it is time to get a little bit of Stephanie Vaquer. And she has been down in Chile doing some TV appearances and spending some time with her family and showing her, dad the titles and stuff. She says that when she told her dad that she wanted to be a pro wrestler, he was very worried. And she said, one day I'm going to be a WWE double champion. Right. And she went back and she took those championships and copies of them and went, these are what I was holding. And it was really cool. We then go into a backstage appearance with Hank and Tank talking to Kenny Kincaid about their stand and deliver match against Fraxium, who end up coming in from the side saying they're looking forward to meeting them at stand and deliver. But Nathan Fraser gets a little bit sour towards them, and as Hank and Tank offer a hand to shake, Nathan Fraser walks off with a bit of a huff, while Axiom stands back and shakes both their hands. At which point, Roxanne Perez is also talking to Ava, like I said earlier, saying that she's going to go in on her own, at which point we find out about Cora Jade coming in and talking to her, but I mentioned that to you a little bit later on. So we are going to jump into our next match, which is the last qualifying match for the North American Championship ladders match in Las Vegas as part of WrestleMania weekend at Stand and Deliver. And we have this match between Carmen Petrovich and, Carmen Petrovich comes to the ring, and then we get to see Cale Dixon and Uriah Connors talking to Andre Chase. And Andre Chase has just apologised for saying that, he ruined everyone's lives. And Thea Hale comes in and says, hey, didn't ruin mine. And even though she's not coming back to Chase University or to Chase U, she'll always be the proud alumni. But right now, she's got a match to win. And she goes out to face Carmen Petrovich in the ladder match qualifier. So the special person that Ava was talking about was Thea Hale. Now, I've never seen Thea Hale wrestle in NXT. Her last singles match was at Great American Bash, which was the end of July, beginning of August 2024. I don't have a huge amount of notes for this match, purely the fan in me took over. It was a good match to watch. I hadn't seen Thea Hale before. I was trying to get a little bit more information about her, and I just generally enjoyed watching this match. Now, it started off with a quick roll-up for a 1 count from Thea Hale. We then had a double arm drag from her and a suplex. And then as Carmen Petrovich goes to the outside, Thea Hale attempts a suicide dive through the ropes, but Carmen Petrovich kicks her right in the face. We end up with Carmen Petrovich getting a 2 count roll up a little while later, after hitting a spinning back fist. And Thea Hale hit a spinning neck breaker and a clothesline from her knees to finish off with a snap suplex slam 2. And now Thea Hale's been booked quite strongly in this one, and as I say, it's a very short match, and she won this one with a double underhook pedigree into a Chimera lock, which is basically a wrist lock. And for those of you who are not too sure about what that is, it was something Brock Lesnar used to use a lot in the UFC. And Carmen Petrovich submitted to this one pretty quickly, lining Thea Hale up to go against Izzy Dame, Kalani Jordan, Sol Ruka, Zarya, and Lola Vice for a shot at the Women's North American Championship. And this last section of the episode this week was a promo from Rick Williams in the ring, saying it's been doing a lot of thinking over the last few weeks, and he's either going to die the hero or live long enough to be the villain. And on Saturday, Trick Williams is coming back for his NXT championship of which the current holder of that title, the ruler himself, Obafemi, comes out to say, look, dude, it's funny, you're still talking like you're the man, but ain't no one out here singing whoop that trick. The only person that's saying it is you. You're just a broken record, man. And he's like, look, I'll give you some advice. After Stand and Deliver, when I retain my title, the spotlight is going to be moving on. And I'm doing that, and you need to do the same thing. At which point, Trick Williams says, look, it's going to take more than a few Black Panther chants to be king back here, and that title looks heavy, man. I'll help you out. I'll take it off you. And to which point we see the third member of the, this NXT Stand and Deliver main event match, Javon Evans, comes out saying Trick Williams just needs to shut the fuck up. And to be fair, is he wrong? I mean, Trick Williams is basically turning into NXT's version of Drew McIntyre, and god damn it, I'm fed up. Javon Evans comes out saying he was right about Trick Williams a few weeks ago, saying he comes out here week after week talking about a match he doesn't deserve, and they're tired about it. So if you're going to talk about something else. And he dismisses Trick Williams completely, and it goes, it's more like about Obafemi and Javon Evans. Javon Evans says Obafemi's been glued to a title since we got to NXT. And he has been. Obafemi's not been there very long. He's had the NXT title. He held another title beforehand. I think it was the North American title he held. But he's dropped the champ twice. And he's hype about it. Javon Evans says that Obafemi will be main eventing WrestleMania soon. And he walks around like the world revolves around him. But, Javon Evans wasn't supposed to make it to WWE. And he did. That's why he's the underdog, and he enjoys being the underdog. Where Obafemi replies that Javon Evans is the future, of NXT, but Obafemi is the present. And NXT does revolve around him because he has the NXT title. And Javon Evans cannot handle that pressure because he's just a kid. At which point we get all three of them kind of stood in a triangle, staring each other down, looking at each other like, which one of you is going to make the move? And the first move to be made is Obafemi and Trick Williams throwing Javon Evans out of the ring, and they start swinging at each other. And Javon Evans comes back in, and they toss him out the other side and go back to swinging. And eventually, Javon Evans jumps off from the top rope, hitting a cutter on both of them, leaving them sprawled out, lying on the floor. And he lifts up Obafemi's title and raises it above his head. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I do not think that is going to be happening at Stand and Deliver. If that does happen at Stand and Deliver, I will eat my hat. I will promise you that one. Just for the record, I don't actually wear a hat, but we'll find something to eat that's not too pleasant if Javon Evans walks out of Stand and Deliver holding that NXT title. Right, well, I'm going to thank you all for listening to my ramblings for the last little while about the final NXT of the year before WrestleMania. And I hope you have enjoyed the build-up to WrestleMania and Stand and Deliver as much as I have over the last couple of months. It has been incredible. So it's one of those, we will have to sit back and see what happens. With that being said, that is the end of this week's episode. So thank you all very much. I will leave you to enjoy Adam's Finishes and Factions Does Hall of Fame Class 2025 special episode. And we will catch you in the next episode of Finishes and Factions Does SmackDown, with the last SmackDown before WrestleMania. So peace out, and we'll see you all there. Enjoy.